before we dive into today's topic on immigration, let's first talk about the immigration minister, Marc Miller. And I'm not trying to be personal here. It's not a personal attack on him, but I think it's important for us to take a look at how this person got this job. Let me show you a picture. You might see some familiar faces in this picture. There's Gerald Butts, the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, former Minister, Seamus O'Regan, and there's this guy. Look familiar? It's Marc Miller, the immigration minister. This guy was picked to oversee one of the most crucial departments that our country relies on, just because he was buddies with the Prime Minister. Because of his strong leadership, we have seen the worst record on immigration. There is fraud, there is abuse, and in his own words, a system that is out of control.
That volume is disconcerting. It's really a system that has gotten out of control.
I say this minister is incompetent because every single day he wakes up and says he's alarmed, he's shocked about his own department's failures. Just a couple of days ago, he made an interview statement saying he was alarmed with the growing increase in asylum claims that our country is now seeing.
Can you tell us how many international students do claim asylum while they're here on student visas?
There's a growing number, Mercedes, and it's frankly quite alarming given the volumes of people that come to this country.
It's his own doing. He shouldn't be shocked about things happening in his own department. That's unacceptable. But you know what? When you're hired because you're a good friend of the Prime Minister, what else should Canadians expect? I think if the minister has no idea what's happening in his own department, it is our job to hold this minister accountable. So today, we're going to take a deep dive into our refugee system to get to the bottom of this crisis.
The language is different, the culture is different, and the climate is unlike anything they've ever known. But for the 161 Vietnamese refugees who spent the last 5 weeks on a freighter off the coast of Malaysia, Canada is now home.
Canada has always been a compassionate country when it comes to taking care of those that are fleeing persecution and coming to our country for those freedom and opportunities that we all love and enjoy. We are also a small country that has finite resources. Even though we want to help every single one, the sad reality is we can't. We have to have a policy in place that is fair, that is balanced, and that helps those that need help the most. What we're seeing today are not claims made by those fleeing war or persecution. We're seeing an increase of those making fake asylum claims, trying to find a backdoor entry to our country.
This is an absolute indicator that the system is broken. And not only is it broken, it's dangerous.
Here's the twist. Folks that are claiming refugee in our country are not coming on these flimsy boats traveling thousands of miles away. They're coming through legitimate means. They're coming with status. They're coming as international students or temporary residents or on visitor visas. As soon as they land or after their study permit expires, they claim refuge to stay in this country. The Liberals have created this mess. Just this year alone, we have seen 13,000 international students make asylum claims here in Canada. Just last month, Marc Miller announced certain changes to the immigration system for our students. And guess what? There has been a surge of applications for those that are seeking refuge now. In the last 4 years, we have seen a 400% increase of folks claiming refuge at our airports. That is not by accident. In 2016, this Liberal government decided to take off the visa requirement for Mexican nationals. Before they took off the visa requirement, we only had about 250 refugee claims by Mexican nationals. A year later, guess how many Mexican nationals claimed refuge in our country? 24,000. Last year, because of Liberal failure, our asylum claims skyrocketed to 138,000 claims. That's a 129% increase from the year previous. Canada currently has 236,000 asylum seekers in our country right now. Lodging alone just accommodation alone cost the government $557 million, $500 million. If you're providing healthcare, legal assistance, and housing, and for all the accommodation and for food, it's about an average $82,000 per person per year. That is shocking. I hope Marc Miller is somewhere in a government department, feverishly taking notes of the stats we're talking about today, because these are scary numbers. This is a broken immigration system, and he knows he's caused it. But hold on, let's go back to the international students. Many international students now are having their visas come up for expiry, and they're being pushed by shady and ghost consultants and others giving free advice that they should claim asylum to stay in this country longer. They know this because many claims are now taking up to 3.5 years to process. So just to process their claims for refugee status, they get to stay in the country for at least another 3.5 years. And if the case does not go their way, they'll be given an opportunity to appeal, giving them more time to stay in our country. While this is going on, they'll have a work permit, they'll have the medical services they need, and they'll continue to be another cheap labor source for those in our country, for those greedy employers. This system has become so bad that Marc Miller is now playing political football and fighting with our premiers across our country, who are pushing back against this broken system.
Still, the number of people coming here is too fast. We're looking at now people living in shelter spaces, people living in campgrounds. That is not good for the newcomers who are coming here. There just isn't the housing stock.
The premiers have raised legitimate concerns about the broken immigration system. And what is Marc Miller's solution to this crisis? Buy hotels. That is not what the premiers are asking for, Minister. They're asking for a viable immigration plan that is sustainable for our country. A refugee is a person who has been forced to leave their country in order to escape war, persecution, or natural disaster. Not someone who chooses to leave their country for new opportunities and then uses the system to extend their stay in our country. The refugee system and definitions comes out of the very worst parts of history and is something that saves lives. It's not there to help someone get a job. There are different paths for that. Today we have to ask, who is a real refugee? But that's what Justin Trudeau has made this program into, a system full of fake asylum claims, fraud, abuse, and chaos. And the new announcement they just made, it's actually going to drive up more fake refugee claims. Just watch it. Under a previous Conservative government, we focused on private sponsorships for refugees. This had way better outcome for the refugees. It was great for our communities. They were able to integrate into our country. And it was a system that got our churches involved, our nonprofit involved, places of worships involved, and everyone worked together as a community for their success. It worked a lot better and cost a lot less. We need to go back to a system that supports this kind of process. A system where the process time didn't take 4 years, where it didn't become a backdoor entry for those trying to stay in our country. This was never a controversial topic in our country. We had a world-class immigration system that helped those that needed help. They broke it, we'll fix it. It's time for Common Sense.